Tonight, we're examining a dramatic escalation in the long-running shadow conflict between Iran and Israel, one that now appears to have crossed into direct, high-intensity confrontation. Ballistic missiles striking Tel Aviv, claims of hundreds of drones launched, and accusations of war crimes and international law violations. As both sides trade blame and broadcast powerful imagery, the question becomes, what is verified? What is strategic messaging? And what does this mean for regional stability?
Sirens, then fire. Iranian ballistic missiles struck central Tel Aviv, and according to footage broadcast by Iran's press TV, at least some of them were not intercepted. The visuals show multiple explosions tearing through densely populated streets, burning vehicles, and thick black smoke rising over what appears to be a residential district. Associated Press images confirmed firefighters responding to scorched vehicles in central Israel after the strikes. Israel's Magen David Adom Rescue Service said at least 11 people had been killed since Sunday, according to the latest available figures. In Tel Aviv alone, at least 40 buildings were damaged in a single night of strikes, according to Haaretz, citing the city municipality. A complete Iranian ballistic missile, not fragments, struck next to an apartment building, leaving a massive crater and killing a Philippine caregiver who did not reach the shelter in time. Iran says it is not finished. Ibrahim Zulfikari, spokesperson for the Joint Army and Revolutionary Guard Coordination Center, announced that in just 48 hours, Iran had struck 60 strategic targets and 500 military points tied to U.S. and Israeli forces, a tally that has not been independently verified. More than 700 drones and hundreds of ballistic missiles fired. He said the operation exceeded everything achieved during the entire 12-day war last June. Iranian media also claimed a strike on what Tehran described as the largest U.S. early warning radar in the Persian Gulf, citing a $1.1 billion price tag and a detection range of 5,000 kilometers. No U.S. confirmation has followed. And then came the response the world did not expect. Iranian state media showed.
At this point, it's important to pause and separate confirmed facts from official claims. Iranian officials are asserting large-scale military success, 260 strategic targets hit, hundreds of missiles launched, but many of these numbers have not been independently verified. In modern conflicts, information warfare often moves as quickly as missiles. Public statements are crafted not only for adversaries, but for domestic audiences and the international community. The reference to attacks on hospitals, schools, and journalists raises serious allegations under international humanitarian law, but such claims require careful investigation before conclusions are drawn. At the same time, Israel has previously cited self-defense against Iranian proxies and direct threats as justification for its own strikes. So here's the broader question. When both sides invoke international law and self-defense, who determines legitimacy, and how should global institutions respond when narratives collide this sharply?
Foreign Ministry spokesperson Esmail Bagay Hamane, speaking not from a podium, but from inside what it said was a school hit by airstrikes. And he asked one question that Pentagon briefers had already answered behind closed doors. Which imminent threat?
In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. The 11th wave of Operation True Promise 4 was executed as a comprehensive, multi-layered and high-intensity combined action by the naval and aerospace operational units of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, targeting American Zionist military objectives on the third day of the terrorist enemy's aggressions against our beloved homeland. The intelligence centers and military support warehouses belonging to the United States in the Persian Gulf region. The communications industry complex of the Israeli regime's army located in Beersheba, and more than 20 locations in the areas of Tel Aviv, West Jerusalem, and Galilee in the occupied territories were all struck by Iranian missiles and drones. The proud and valiant members of Iran's armed forces, by launching an assault on 60 strategic targets and 500 military sites belonging to America and Israel, have, up to this very moment, fired more than 700 drones and hundreds of ballistic missiles, thereby defeating our enemies in their interception attempts and establishing a new record. They have achieved more in the past 48 hours alone in their battle with the invading enemies than was accomplished throughout the entire 12-day war. The brutal and terroristic actions perpetrated by the United States Army and the Zionist regime against the oppressed Iranian citizens, particularly in their savage attack on hospitals, schools, the National Broadcasting Organization, and various civil institutions will increasingly forge the determination to wage a full-scale war against adversaries within the armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and will significantly enhance the scale of our country's military engagements. And victory is not but from Allah, the exalted in might, the wise.
They chose their initial strikes with extreme care and a very conscious decision at the same time that I implore you to consider what happened to our nation's leader. Our country's leader was brutally attacked and martyred at his very own workplace alongside his entire family. And at that exact same moment, our innocent children were also martyred in Minab. With 2 missiles. Why 2 missiles? Our children in Minab. Today, their eternal resting place is to be prepared. 171 beautiful Iranian angels, commander of Iran throughout Iran's modern history, until we speak of the international community of a... We're not talking about abstract concepts. Every single government that is a member of the United Nations, including European countries that constantly preach about the rule of law and human rights, had a duty and still do. International law is being undermined. International humanitarian law has been trampled underfoot. The UN Charter has lost all meaning. A military invasion of Iran would undoubtedly mark the beginning of the end. It is the UN system. Where is the Secretary General of the UN? Republic attack. Any source of information, any means of informing and raising public awareness has been an integral part of Israel's pattern of crime. The biggest killer of journalists in Gaza, pause, in Lebanon, pause, and in various other places, pause, is the Zionist regime. We can say that children and journalists were the primary targets of the Zionist regime.
I am standing here to make it absolutely clear that our defensive measures against American military bases, I must emphasize, under no circumstances whatsoever, represent any animosity from the Iranian nation towards the nations of this region.
This is a restricted area. Did we send missiles? What we are doing is targeting locations that are the origin and source of attacks on Iran. This is a principle of international law. We have been subjected to military aggression. We have the right to defend. We have the duty to defend ourselves.
The reason for the subject of religious indebtedness.
But we didn't have any enrichment. Even though we always emphasize that enrichment is part of our right, we are a signatory to the NPT. Despite this, ever since they launched an attack on our nuclear facilities, and they themselves declared they had completely wiped them out, they claimed they had utterly demolished them. They stated it was rendered useless, meaning it was sealed off. Due to the extensive damage that had been inflicted, there was essentially no enrichment taking place. So how can Mr. Vitkov claim, just a week ago, that Iran has only 1 week left to produce the necessary materials for the construction of a nuclear weapon, a constant barrage of lies, and endless deception? And this, unfortunately, has now become the defining pattern of American diplomacy in this current age.
We need to understand what exactly has transpired today.
This deception becomes even more egregious when, on the one hand, you claim to be concerned about the lives of Iranians. You say you're sending aid, but the aid you actually send arrives in the form of missiles, striking a school in Minab, or a sports stadium in La Merde, or even a hospital in Tehran, Avaz, or Marrakech. The way to stop the war is for them to bring it to an end. The United Nations Security Council has a very important responsibility. Yes, its past record clearly indicates that it has not taken action, but it absolutely can act if it truly wishes to, because there are no impediments whatsoever to its taking action apart from its own political will. The international community must make a decisive choice before it becomes too late. Before this conflict expands and spreads to other regions, it must certainly fulfill its obligations. The action must involve compelling the aggressor parties to put an end to their aggression.
Our country, at his workplace, with his family.
And now I want to tell the people of Iran that everything that is being said regarding the negotiation process is nothing more than an absolute falsehood. That in the very last stage, a specific offer was presented to us and we did not accept it. The very core of the matter is reality itself. We must not allow them, at the same time as this unequal and bloody war they have launched against us, to inject their falsehoods into the heart of history.
Little.
This would be an act of war. Any such act against Iran would be regarded as complicity with the aggressors. It would be regarded as an act of war against Iran. To claim that defensive is merely a synonym for offensive is a statement that simply defies all logic and reason. Is their true intention to completely deprive Iran of its fundamental capability and its inherent capacity to effectively defend itself and fight back against any potential aggressors?
What we've heard is not just a military update, it's a battle over legitimacy, narrative, and international opinion. Iran frames its actions as lawful self-defense under the UN Charter, while accusing the United States and Israel of aggression and deception. Meanwhile, Casualty reports an infrastructure damage in Israel underscore the human cost of escalation. Historically, direct exchanges between Iran and Israel have been limited and often indirect. If these strikes represent a sustained shift, the geopolitical implications could be profound, affecting US involvement, Gulf security, global energy markets, and the credibility of international institutions like the United Nations Security Council. The key takeaway is this. In conflicts like these, clarity is often the first casualty. Claims must be verified, rhetoric scrutinized, and legal standards applied consistently regardless of which side makes them. What do you think? Is this primarily deterrence, retaliation, or the beginning of something larger? Share your perspective in the comments below. If you value balanced fact-based analysis without the noise, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next breakdown of the stories shaping global affairs.
That truly would be an absolute and utter shame. If these nations choose to take sides with the aggressors, they have already inflicted more than enough damage and harm upon Iran.